A couple who live right here in the United Kingdom are 72 and recently they had a baby via a surrogate in the US using the husband's sperm and a donor egg. The couple said that they had chosen this path after their son died of cancer in 2020 at the age of 26, and they heard from other grieving parents that having another child had helped to console them. However, the judge ruling on the case pointed out that they were likely to be 82 when the child starts secondary school and nearly 90 when the child reaches adulthood. So is that fair on the child, do you think? Or do you think elderly people having children via a surrogate should not be something that we encourage? Maybe you think it's a great idea just to give somebody life. Let's ask Dawn about this first. I mean, this has happened and the judge has ruled that it's fine, they are the parents of this child.
The judge has ruled in a legal case that that's the issue, but I think morally it's completely wrong, Vanessa. I think it's so selfish. Babies aren't a sticking plaster. I know they lost a child and that's appalling, but they aren't sticking plasters. It's a baby. It's a human life here. And, you know, as has been pointed out, they are going to be how old when the child goes to school? In their 80s.
82 when he starts school and 89 when he finishes at 18.
Vanessa, I lost my dad when I was 32 years old, and that still devastates me. So can you imagine being, say, a teenager, 13, and losing your parents? That's going to be awful, really hard to cut. I think it's downright selfish. I think, frankly, it should be illegal.
There would be lots of people thinking, however, Narinder, I suppose, giving life, if you say to someone, you know, would you rather your parents were younger, taller, older, richer, better read, you know, better at sport, you might say yes, but would you rather not have been born at all? People will, I think, say, well, the gift of life that these people gave me means I'm here at all and I will have whatever adventures I have.
I know, but I'm going to agree with Dawn, because at the end of the day, this child, his parents may not live until he could be 8, 9, 10 years old, and his parents could die. They're at that viable age. And I just think that, okay, I think selfish is one word. My understanding is they're very rich. So they've paid £150,000 for the sperm donor. So I think they've got money.
No, it's the father's own sperm.
Yes.
It's the surrogate mother using a donor egg.
And they paid £150,000.
Yes.
I think the agency got £26,000 or something. So I think that they were rich, and they've decided actually, and I feel desperately sad that they lost their son at 27. I can't imagine the grieving that they're going through and will continue to go through. But can you replace a lost child? You can't. And I think that's what they're trying to do. And I think ethically, this just speaks... They're grieving parents. There's something very wrong here. But yes, they're giving life to a child. But will that child still have a parent at 12 years old, 16 years old? I don't think so.
Or could you say that they will love this child with every fibre of their being? They will...
Till how long?
Well, as long as they can, just like any other parent, because you never know when you're going to die.
And also the exhaustion. I was exhausted at 31 years old. I'm a godmother now to a beautiful little 2-year-old boy. He comes round for an hour. I'm exhausted, Vanessa. You're a grandmother. Are you not tired after a couple of hours?
I mean, yes and no. You know, children can energise you. Yes. And these people, look at the effort that they've made to have this baby. Look at what they've had to put in place to get this child.
But could they not have adopted? Could they have not adopted?
Well, no, they couldn't, because you can't adopt over a certain age.
Old.
No, they couldn't. So that's why surrogacy is the only means, because at the moment there's no age regulation on surrogacy.
Well, isn't that interesting that you can be too old to adopt, but you can't be too old to care for a baby that a surrogate has had for you. I think we are treating babies now like a commodity, like an accessory. I think, you know, how many rich celebrity women sort of like disappear for a while and then come back with a baby, and it's like, well, where did you get that from?
Yes,
we know you're too old to have it naturally.
Yes.
So, I mean, people are buying babies. It's wrong.
I know, but people buy everything, and sometimes the thing they want most in the world, and you wonder whether these people will be so full of love, having lost their son.
Babies aren't a piece of jewellery, they're not a new pair of shoes, they're not a car.
They will be full of love, but I think the grieving element is a bit dangerous here. And I think you've got to look at the ethical standards here, that actually you're trying to replace your lost son.
Well, so we love your calls on this one. Maybe you think you're never too old to love a baby. Maybe you were brought up by your grandparents, your great-grandparents. Maybe you're caring for a baby now and you're full of energy. Let me know how you feel about this one, 0207 862 2222. But we're joined now by the journalist Emma Wolfe, who had her son, Ludovic, via IVF at the age of 41. Hi there, Emma. Good to have you on the show. So you were 41. Did anybody suggest to you that that was too old?
No, I was 40. No one suggested to me that I was too old. I think you guys are missing the point here. There is no test to be a parent. There are many, in fact, the majority of babies out there are born without that much planning, without that much thought. The majority of babies and children in the world just happen, right? They can happen from a one-night stand. They can happen from, a 16-year-old lad getting his girlfriend pregnant. There is no test for parenthood. There is no test.
There is actually a test, Emma. There is actually a test, because that happens to young people because it's biologically possible. It doesn't just happen to old people because it's not biologically possible. So it doesn't just happen, Emma.
This couple, of course it does. It just happens when people have sex. That's how babies are made, by the way.
Young people.
Yeah, that's how. So this couple are 72 years old. I think it's absolutely fantastic. They're wealthy. They are in good health. They have longed and planned and hoped and prayed for this baby. They have made so many arrangements. They've made good provision in case anything does happen to them, for him to be looked after by friends of theirs, by a couple in their 30s. This little boy will be nurtured and, cherished more than the majority of children and babies who are born in the world. There is absolutely no problem. When they're 76, he'll be starting primary school. When he's 18, they'll be in their late 80s.
That's if they're alive, Emma. That's if they're alive.
What did you say, Emma?
When my dad died, he was 92. He was an amazing dad. As I was growing up, he was in his 70s and 80s. He was an older dad. And I was hurt sometimes when people said, "Oh, is that your granddad?" Because children can be cruel. There is that element of it, of having older parents. But older parents can be amazing. And one last point, yeah, we have less energy as we get older. Of course we do. And it will be exhausting for them in their 70s, having a child, having a baby. They'll have lots of help. They are wealthy. The point is, children they are nurtured. They are loved by this couple. They will be, there is no kind of test that you have to be a fit parent. It's how you do it. And yeah, they'll be tired, but it's also energizing. What about obese parents? What about parents who smoke? We let these people who have zero energy and zero fitness have babies and have children. So they're older. So what?
What about Narinder's point, actually, Emma, about natural selection? In other words, the menopause kicks in, you get older, your sperm are less vigorous swimmers, and you can't get pregnant over a certain age unless there's extreme technological intervention. And what Narinder's saying, I think some people at least will agree with it. That's what separates those who are, in inverted commas, meant to be parents from those who are ruled out just by age, just by mortality, just by being human beings.
I think, Emma, I think the point is,
you can get pregnant. You can get pregnant at 12 or 13. We don't want that happening. We intervene all the time. We allow women over the age of 40 or over the age of 30 to have IVF. We allow infertile couples to have IVF. We use contraception
because they're at the right age. You keep coming out with this. You keep coming out with this. Oh, this child will be loved. This child will have this. You don't know. These parents could die. They're at that age where they're going to die in the next 10 or 15 years, and it's irresponsible. And you're saying, well, they've put in provisions for their friends to look after this child. That's not very nice. There's no guarantee, Emma, that these friends will look after this child and love this child like the parents did.
I suppose, in fairness, there are no guarantees
that
anyone will live a particularly long or short life. Emma, thank you very much indeed. Let me go straight to the lines. Obviously, the calls are coming in on this, and people have personal experience of this. For example, Richard in Newport, who's on the line. Richard, when you were born, your dad was 52. So how was that for you growing up?
I don't say I didn't have loving parents. I did have my mum and my dad. But when it came to my dad meeting me from school sometimes, I was bullied and picked upon many times in respect that they all thought it was my granddad picking me up because we're going back. I'm talking when I was between sort of 6, 7, 8, 9 years of age. And they used to say, "Oh, your granddad picked you up." I tell you what, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking, actually.
And what was he like as a dad in terms of doing things with you or playing football with you or whatever?
My dad done a lot of things with me, but can I turn around and say, I've never taken the football. He never kicked the football around with me. He never sort of done any athletic things with me whatsoever. So therefore, when other kids were taken to the park and played football, that never happened with me. It never happened.
And then
I
there's
always
the
spend more time-
clincher of a question, Richard, of course, which is, could you imagine preferring not to have been born at all? You know, he was your dad, he was 52, here you are living your life. Had he decided he was too old to be a dad, you wouldn't be here. Surely you'd rather be around, wouldn't you?
Oh, yes, as I said in the beginning, I'm very grateful to my parents, yeah, because I would never have been born, you know what I mean, if it hadn't been for them, obviously. But might I say, I lost my mum when I was 23. She was only 60. She was 62 only when she died.
Sorry to hear.
So I mean, that was a thing on me. She died 3 months before I got married.
No, it's
So you know, and I have to be very grateful to my in-laws because they took me under their wing.
And one more question, Richard. Your dad was 52. These people are both 72. And it's a new baby we're talking about. How do you feel about that?
I think it's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, virtually we're playing with nature, yeah? We're virtually playing with nature.
However, we do that every time we change our hair colour and every time we have an infected appendix removed. We play with nature. So we're all used to doing it, aren't we? Lots of times along the way. Let's go straight to David on the line in Liverpool. What do you think about this, David? Parents at 72?
Yeah. I just think it's absolutely, ridiculous. Far too old. And can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, I just think it's far too old. By the time the child's 10, they'll be 82, and they won't be able to run around and play with them in the park and do all things like that. And then they're going,
But you don't just think, OK, they won't be running around in the park, but they can do many other things. Read stories, teach them to play the piano, have jokes, have games, do all kinds of things. Not everybody has to run around the park all day, every day, do they?
No. I'm not really on about that. I'm on about, just doing things that I get a little bit energetic. Like I used to take my son swimming. Will they be able to take the children swimming and things like that? And
lots of people been swimming this morning and are 72, won't there? Really, let's face it. You can go swimming in your 70s, you can go swimming in your 80s. David, thanks for the call. Let's go to Deborah in Norfolk. How do you feel about this one, Deborah? Deborah, are you there?
Yes, sorry.
Hello. What do you think, Deborah?
I think that a child with parents at that age are unable to get to know them properly, and then they pass away. And what happens to that child?
I think provision has been made. It'd be good if you could mute your telly, though, Deborah, because we can hear ourselves booming back at us in the background, so that would be a good thing. I mean, one of the situations here is that you don't know how long any parent or any human being has got. So could be they live to be 105 in great health and fine fettle, and that they're full of punch and oomph. Who knows?
Of course, no, and you don't know. Yeah, we don't know how much time we've got, thankfully. But I think many of the callers, Vanessa, have made the point that, the bond you develop with a parent, if they are a similar age group to you, sort of like, there's only 10, 20 years in it type of thing, it's a similar generational thing. So many people are already talking about running around the park and sharing experiences like that, and it is important. And I do think that if your parent is that much older than you, there's so much distance between you, and what they can do physically, it is going to affect you growing up.
And you feel as if this is just their desire for a child. It must be such an overwhelming desire they feel having lost their son, mustn't it?
Of course it is. But
it must be, maybe, do you think, clouding their judgment?
It's the wrong reason. And that little boy is going to grow up knowing, well, we only had you because your older brother died. You are a sticking plaster.
I think we're being far too giving here. This is far too, they might be in good health. They're going to barely have their teeth, barely have their sight, barely have their mobility.
Come on, that's
at 82. At 82.
But they're not 82, they're 72.
Even 72. I mean, I can barely see now. They won't have their teeth. They don't have that. And we're all sitting and saying, they'll be great parents. It's hard enough being a parent in your 30s, never mind 70s. I think, you look at
Donald Trump, for God's sake, and he's running the entire free world.
Well, yes, but
it?
Not very well either. But can I just say that at 72, they're making provisions for probably for their funeral and what will happen
At
after.
72? Oh, this is desperately unfair to them.
No,
Oh,
I don't
come
think so.
on.
And having a baby at 72, it is ridiculous.
Hi, Robert.
Hello.
Hi. What do you think?
Well, I think if a child is loved by its parents, then I don't think that you should deny the child the love, because there's a lot of children out there that are born to parents that don't even love them at a very young age. And if you can give a child love at whatever age it is, then I don't see the issue, to be honest with you.
Well, you know, that's what I've been trying to say, but you've heard me being roundly shot down by my two guests here, and all the callers as well, actually, Robert. Well, everyone seems adamant that it's wrong.
Well, I'm 50 years old. I've got a beautiful son. Alex, say hello.
Hello.
Hi, Alex. Hi, sweetheart. How old is Alex?
Alex? He's 7 running away. He's 7, so I was 43 when I had him. My partner and I, we've got a 2.5-year-old, beautiful, wonderful little girl. And I feel that I can give them just as much love and we'll be able to for several years ahead. Whereas, like I said, some other people, they are fortunate to have children, but then the child's unfortunate for the parent not to maybe love them or be taken away. So I don't think anybody could really tell what's ever going to happen in the future. And I think unless you're in that situation, people shouldn't be playing God on other people's lives.
And tell me about the baby, your little girl, who's a beautiful, wonderful, gorgeous gift for you. So you're about 48 when she was born, something like that, 47, 48.
Yeah.
Did any part of you think, oh, Kaur, I'm too old for this old dad getting up in the middle of the night rigmarole, or are you really up for it?
Well, you're there, aren't you? You know, you've got to... You made your bed, you've got to lay in it, and it's the most precious thing that's ever happened to me. So,
oh, that's a lovely thing.
You can't really, you know, her name's Daisy Davis. She's a lovely little girl, and we have an amazing time together.
How old is your wife, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, it's not my wife, she's my life partner. She's 27.
Oh,
so she's conceived at a young age, naturally. So
20,
she's a young mum. So
yeah, and she lost both her parents 3 years ago during the COVID pandemic, and they were both 56. So it's precious to her, this new life being brought through. I've taken a day off work today to spend with Alec, and one of my very good friends who's sitting with me also. He's 68 years old, and he had his third child at 58. And we're all in the garden, we're all building a fence together, and playing on the quad bike, yeah. And
Robert, don't let me keep you. I'm really pleased to have spoken to you. And I think what you said about Daisy was delightful, just the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to him. Let's go to Maureen in Hampshire. Tell me about what you think, Maureen, because I think you had yours rather young.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I did. I was 26 when I had my little girl, and I found it really tiring and hard having her. Even when I was when I met my other partner, I was still tired. I felt I felt tired. You know, you have to get up in the night. So can you imagine when you're 72 years old that you've got to get up in the night, and you might have all the money in the world, you might have people helping, but when they want mummy and daddy in the night, you've got to get up. So you might have the brain and you might physically feel all right, but mentally it's draining and it's tiring. And I understand that when you can't have children and you really appreciate it, but at 72, for me, is too much. I've got 4 grandchildren, and I get tired of 4 grandchildren. I'm 60 now. Yes. So can you imagine how they must feel getting up? And I just couldn't do it. It just, and your time is your life to enjoy yourself at 72, I think. Go out and enjoy yourself. See the world.
Yeah. Rory, lovely to hear from you. Thank you so much.